That's good. So I'd like to welcome you all on this wonderful, auspicious occasion of the Appearance Day celebration or commemoration of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. A very, very wonderful day. And I was thinking that we could sing a bhajan, which is called Nitai Pada Kamala. Or it's called Manashiksa on page 82 of this book. Yeah? But you want to sing it? Because you're probably better at it than I am. No? Okay, I'm not very good at singing, that's all. Oh. Are there cartels with longer strings? I can't. This one's a bit difficult to use. Thank you. Okay. So, if you want to sing along, if you don't know the bhajan, there's songbooks up in that cupboard up the back there. Maybe distribute a few first. Yeah, so you can Google it also. Nitai Pada Kamala Koti Chandra Shushitala Nitai Pada Kamala Koti Chandra Shushitala Jechaya Jagata Jurai Jechaya Jagata Jurai Eno Nitte Bine Bai Radha Krishna Paitinai Eno Nitte Bine Bai Radha Krishna Paitinai Krida Kori Daro Nitte Pai Krida Kori Daro Nitte Pai Se Sambandha Nahi Ja Britta Janma Gelota Se Sambandha Nahi Ja Britta Janma Gelota Se Pasu Bora Duracha Se Pasu Bora Duracha Nityaina Bolila Mukhe Majila Sansara Sukhe Nityaina Bolila Mukhe Majila Sansara Sukhe Vidyakule Kikori Beta Vidyakule Kikori Beta Ahankara Mata Hoye Nitai Pada Pashariya Ahankara Mata Hoye Nitai Pada Pashariya Asatyera Satya Korimani Asatyera Satya Korimani Nitya Karuna Habbe Braja Radha Krishna Pabbe Nitya Karuna Habbe Braja Radha Krishna Pabbe Daro Nitya Charana Dukani Daro Nitya Charana Dukani Nitya Charana Satya Tahara Savaka Nitya Nitya Charana Satya Nitya Nitya Para Sara Kore Asha Nitai Pada Sada Kora Asha Naratama Bora Duki Nitai Mora Kora Suki Naratama Bora Duki Nitai Kora Kora Suki Rakuranga Charanera Pasha Koranga Charanera Pasha. Okay, so this is a really nice bhajan by Narottam Thakur. And basically he's just talking, or just helping us to understand the wonderful nature of Nityananda Prabhu. And essentially, I'm not going to go into the song in too much detail, but he starts off essentially just by saying that Nitai Padakamala, meaning the lotus feet of Nityananda, Koti Chandra Shushi Tala. So Koti means millions. Yeah? Chandra means the moon. Shushi Tala, they're very soothing. The shade of his lotus feet is very soothing, like millions and millions of moons. And the only way that you can find or attain peace in this world, because it mentions here about how people are, like burning in this material world. The samsara, the cycle of birth and death, is a very unpleasant situation, and people are suffering greatly because of this material identification, material affliction. And the only way that they can become peaceful is if they take shelter of Nityananda's lotus feet. And it's a very similar verse or statement is made by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Gurvastika prayer, where he makes the same claim that samsara dava nalita loka tranaya karunya gana gana tyang, that the living entity is caught in this material world, and it's like a forest fire. There's dava nala, he's like burning like he's in a forest fire. And the only way he can achieve peace or achieve shelter in this world is by taking shelter of that person who's showering mercy like a rain cloud. Now, we've had some really wet weather this year, and sometimes it really buckets down. And you can just imagine, say for instance, you want to go and water the garden, right? You've got a little garden, it doesn't take long. But if you've got 1,000 acres to water, how are you going to do that? You get out with your watering can, you spend the rest of your life watering, you wouldn't even get to all the trees. But by the arrangement of Krishna, in a moment he can water. Huge amount of, so we see in the same way that the spiritual master, he's pouring his mercy, or Nityananda, because Nityananda is the original spiritual master, and he's pouring his mercy on this material world just like a rain cloud. Yeah? So, very, very liberal. So I wanted to read, not so much read, but just go over a few major points in terms of Nityananda Prabhu. I've just got to find them here on my computer, or this thing, what do they call it? iPad. And I was going to look at Nityananda Prabhu from three aspects of Nityananda Prabhu. One is a bit of philosophy. Another is discuss a few pastimes, because it's always nice to hear about the pastimes of the Lord. And then also just discuss, because I gave class last night here about Varaha, because yesterday was Varaha Dwadasi. Everyone. And so I was asked a question at the end, is how can we achieve Nityananda's mercy? So I gave an answer, but I wasn't really satisfied with the answer. So today I spent a bit of time researching that answer, and trying to find out a little bit more about how to achieve Nityananda's mercy. So a lot of the information I'm going to refer to here is from the Adi Leela chapter 5. Adi Leela meaning this is the first book of the Caitanya Charita. Caitanya Charita's got 3 sections. It's got the Adi, which means the original or the beginning, then the Madhya, which is the middle, and of course the Antya, which is the end. So 3 books, 9 books, 5 books, in the Caitanya Charitamrita. And very, very interesting. And it deals a lot with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's interactions with his most prominent servitors and his presenting of Krishna consciousness to them. And we see that, like especially Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, from the presentation they got from Lord Chaitanya, then the knowledge we have now essentially comes from them. Especially we see Rupa Goswami wrote many books, and Sanatana Goswami also wrote many books, and Jiva Goswami was the one who sort of codified the teachings and put it in a very succinct manner. So what we have now essentially is coming from those 3 personalities, primarily, but obviously there's more devotees who gave knowledge, but primarily those 3. So the original Sankarshan, if we understand, like in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, there's a whole discussion about creation, because in any Purana or a Mahapurana, there's 10 major topics. So one of these topics is creation. There's 2 levels of creation. There's the primary creation, the secondary creation. So the primary creation means Krishna creating all the elements and the universes, like that. The secondary creation is Lord Brahma and the Prajetas populating the universe and creating all the different sort of nuances within the universe. But so, and the way the universe is created is through the different Vishnu expansions. So there's Karadakshay Vishnu, whose Karana means causal, so he's the one who creates the causal ocean. It comes from his body. He sweats, and he creates this ocean. He lies down on the ocean on Anantashesh, and then from his when he's breathing out, all the universes come out of his body like little. It's different. There's just different descriptions. Sometimes it says like orbs. Sometimes it says like threads. And as I can understand, all these eggs have sort of coagulated together into these golden threads, and they just float off, and they just sit down. They rest on the ocean. Some of them are above the water, some are below the water, but they float on the ocean. And then the Lord expands himself. Karadakshay Vishnu expands himself as Garbhadakshay Vishnu, and enters into all these universes, so millions and millions, unlimited universes. Prabhupada describes it somewhat like a bag of mustard seeds, and to give you an idea, like mustard seeds are pretty tiny. We did. Many of you may have seen the Panchatattva in Mayapur. They're quite large deities. They're about 9 foot tall, I think. Anyhow, so when we did the Abhishek, the installation for the Panchatattva, one of the things you do is at the start you rub over the deity's body what they call till or sesame seed. You grind it into a paste. You mix it with a little bit of water. You grind it to a paste, and you rub it all over the deity's body. So we did that for the Panchatattva. Now you can imagine you've got 5 deities, and they're all about 9 foot tall. Some 9-10 foot tall. A lot of till paste. So we had a bag of mustard seeds, like not mustard seeds, sorry, sesame seeds like this big. And I was just when we got the bag, and I thought, this is just like the universes. There's one little sesame seed in that bag, it's like our universes. So all these other mustard seeds are just sesame seeds are like universes. So it's like that. There's so many unlimited universes, you can't count them. And Karadakshay Vishnu, he expands as Garbhadakshay Vishnu enters into every one of them. And then from him, Lord, the lotus grows out of his navel. Brahma is born on that lotus. And then Brahma, he meditates, and the Lord vibrates these syllables, tapa, are vibrated. And then he starts to meditate. He forms tapasya and meditates for 1,000 years. And then the spiritual world is revealed to him. And that's the Brahma Samhita. That's when the Brahma Samhita comes about. So, and then again, Garbhadakshay Vishnu expands as Chiradakshay Vishnu, who's the Paramatma in the heart of every living entity, and also the Lord that resides in Svetadvip. You hear in the Bhagavatam about when the Devatas, that they'll go to the shore of the Milk Ocean to offer prayers, asking the Lord to come and help them. Just like right now in the Bhagavatam verse, we're discussing. The morning Bhagavatam class, we're discussing the incarnation of Varahadev. Varahadev is the boar form of the Lord. So there's different stories how he appeared, but one of the ways he appeared was that the Devatas, they go down to the shore of the Milk Ocean and they offer prayers. We're in trouble. We need your help. But the primary prayer they offer is what's called the Purusha Shukta. They're praying their prayers for the Purusha, for the Creator. So they pray for the Purusha Shukta, for the Purusha to come and save them from this calamitous situation. Anyhow, so just to give you, this whole universal creation, it's a phenomenal thing. It's so vast and there's so many unlimited universes. But just to give you perspective, Balaram, Nityananda, because as we understand, Narottam Das Thakur has written that Brajendranandana se Sachi Sutta Hoila se, Balaram Hoila Nitaya. So Brajendranandana, Krishna, he's expanded as Sachi Sutta, Mahaprabhu, the son of Sachi. And Balaram, he's come as Nitya. Same person, there's no difference. It's not like, they're an expansion from or whatever. It's the same person, just manifest in different forms. And then so Balaram, he expands as Sankarshan. And then from that Sankarshan comes what is called the Chatavyuha. From Sankarshan, so you have Sankarshan, he expands as Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Vasudeva. It's kind of interesting because Krishna simultaneously expands as Vasudeva, and Balaram simultaneously expands as Sankarshan, but also Sankarshan's expanding as Vasudeva. It's a little bit kind of one of those Achincha kind of things. How do you understand it? I don't know. But it's a little bit inconceivable. But anyhow, so Balaram expands as Sankarshan, and the first Chatavyuha comes from. So from there, Sankarshan, he expands as Mahashankarshan, and this Mahashankarshan is Mahavishnu, and from this Mahavishnu comes the Purusha avatars. So we can see it's an expansion of an expansion of an expansion of Balaram creates the universe. So it just to give you a bit of an ontological position of who Balaram is and what he does. So we see that Krishna expands himself in many different ways. So sometimes we hear that Radharani is the first expansion of Krishna, and other times we hear Balaram's the first expansion of Krishna. Which one's right? Huh? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? They're both the first expansions. I heard an interesting lecture from Giriraj Maharaj, and he's explaining it. Balaram is his expansion as the energetic. Radharani is his expansion as the energy. Yeah, she's the Shakti, and Balaram Shaktiman. So they're both the first, but they have different functions. Yeah? So Radharani is the first expansion in terms of the energy, and Balaram is the energetic. So I thought that was a really interesting understanding. And yet we see that there's only one. And this is an interesting point that comes out from the 5th chapter of the Adi Leela, is that there's a nice verse there where it says, Ekala Ishra Krishna Arasabhyabrita. Ekala Ishra, there's only one Ishra, that is Krishna. Arasabhyabrita. And all others they dance as he makes them do so. And this is because the chapter is called The Glories of Nityananda Balaram. So we see in this chapter, it's talking about how Balaram is actually the supreme, and when I say Balaram, I'm referring to Nityananda because he's called Nityananda Balaram or Nityananda Ram. Yeah? So we see that Balaram, even though he is he is directly expanding from Krishna, he's the first incarnation. Still, based on this verse, we can understand Ekala Ishvara Krishna. There's only one controller. There's only one enjoyer. That is Krishna. All others dance as he makes them do so. That includes all the Vishnu incarnations. So we see all the, just like if we look at where is it? So Balaram expands as Sankarshan, the Chatavyuha manifest. Then from that Sankarshan comes Mahashankarshan, and then from each of these, from Mahashankarshan, there comes Narayan. Narayan enters into so many different universes. There's so many different Narayans, and so if you go through the list, there's thousands upon countless millions of Narayan forms. They all serve Krishna. Every one of them serves Krishna because Krishna is the only controller. He's the only master. Ekara Ishvara. There's only one master. That's Krishna. And that's one of the things that's really interesting about Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. It's only in Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy you'll get this understanding that Krishna is the original. And we see that in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 3rd chapter, there's a really wonderful verse where it starts off, Ete changsa kalapungsam Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam, Indrari vyakalam lokam mridayanti yuge yuge. So this is a really important verse. And Jiva Goswami, he's actually written quite an extensive commentary on this verse, and he defines this verse as being the emperor verse. And from his perspective, this is the most important verse in the Bhagavatam, especially this line, Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam. And he opines that all the verses in the Bhagavatam have to be understood in the light of this one verse, that Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam. Because it mentions is ete changsa kala pungsang. So angsa means like plenary expansions. So all these plenary expansions, angsa, kala, ete changsa kala pungsang. So kala means partial expansions or portions of expansions, and pungsang means refers to manus and people like that, the vibhutis, these different empowered personalities. And so we're seeing that the Bhagavatam lists 22 different incarnations or manifestations of the Lord's energy. Yet it says that, but of all of these, Krishna's too, but Krishna, Bhagavan, Swayam, that he is Bhagavan, he is the original, Swayam, his own form. He is the original person. There's no one beyond him. So Jiva Goswami defines that this is, as I mentioned, this is the essential verse of the Bhagavatam, and we understand all other verses in the light of this one statement that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so, in the same way, we see in the Caitanya Charitamrita, in the 5th chapter, it's talking about this one verse, how Lord Krishna, he's actually the only enjoyer, and all others are his servants. So following on from that, we can understand that also Balaram, he takes on this role of servant. But his role is understood to be the supreme personality of servant of Godhead. So his role is to serve. And we see it's also described in and he assumes many different forms, like his umbrella, like we see these wonderful umbrellas on the altar, and his shoes, the couch he lies on. Just an interesting element of deity worship. According to Sri Vaishnava belief in deity worship, well, not belief, but just their practice in deity worship, their philosophy, is there's different asanas the deity is offered. When you move the deity from one place to another, we offer him asana. So an asana can mean a seat or a situation of worship. So in our daily worship, there's many different asanas the deity is offered. First, we have the mantra asana, where he receives all the different, padya, argya, achman, all these types of things. Then we have a bhogasana, a shayanasana, bhogasana where he eats, a shayanasana where he sleeps, alankar asana where he's dressed and ornamented, the snanasana where he gets bathed. And then we also have what's called a paryanka asana, or a couch. Yeah? So where he is now, this is called the paryanka. He's standing, because generally he'll lie or sit on a couch. So this is also, these singasanas, we're actually understanding these are expansions of Lord Balaram. Yeah? And the same as like when we offer bhoga to the deity is a seat. So when we put their seat on the floor, we understand this is an expansion of Lord Balaram, so we don't touch it with our feet, we don't step over it, because these things are all considered sacred. And so many elements of the worship, the pillows he lies on, so his bed also, because the bed's shayanasana, the pillows, the garments he wears, his residence, so the altar is considered to be his residence, his upavit, his sacred thread, and so on. These are all considered to be expansions of Sesha. And in the Adi Leela, in verse 10, chapter 5, verse 10, it mentions that Balaram assumes 5 different forms to serve Krishna. So he expands himself as Mahashankashan, Karadakshayi Vishnu, Gavadakshayi Vishnu, Shiradakshayi Vishnu, and Shesha. These 5 forms. Don't expect you're going to remember them. I'm not going to quiz you on these things at the end. But the point is, it's like these five forms are responsible for the spiritual and material manifestations. And of these five forms, Balaram, he assists, in these five forms, Balaram assists the Lord in all his activities. So he assists in his pastimes, he assists him in creation, etc. So the first four, Mahashankasha, Karanadakshay Vishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, and Kshirodakshay Vishnu, these are responsible for the cosmic manifestation. So, as I was saying before, Mahashankashan expands out, he's Mahavishnu, also understood to be Mahavishnu. From him comes the Purusha avatars, meaning, Karanadakshay, Garbhadakshay, Kshirodakshay. Yeah? And they are responsible for creating the whole universe. But in the last one, Shesha, this is how he serves the Lord directly. He manifests all the paraphernalia for his different pastimes. So here we see in the deity room, all the things we see in the deity room are manifestations of Shesha. When we look at Krishna's pastimes, the Dham is manifested from Shesha. All these different things, the place where Krishna performs his pastimes is all a place, all being manifest from Shesha. And we can understand also that there's another. It's kind of interesting because if you study the philosophy and you do deity worship, you can actually see how the philosophy is coming to life in deity worship. It's a very interesting thing. There's one, not a procedure, but there's a yantra that we draw sometimes when we're doing deity worship. It's called a Golok yantra. And what it is, you've probably seen, this downward-facing triangle, an upward-facing triangle, circle around it, and then 8 lotus petals, and in the middle you write Kling. So this hexagram is described in verse 4 and 5 of the Brahma Samhitas representing the Dham. So you can have a Golok yantra or a Navadvip yantra or whatever, but it represents the Dham. And so also when we draw this, you can also worship Kurma, Anantashesh, the Dara Shakti. So the way it works is down the bottom of the universe you have Kurma. He's supporting the universe. On his back is sitting Anantashesh. Yeah? And then on Anantashesh's head is the Adara Shakti. You understand what the Adara Shakti is? It's called the accommodating potency. So the accommodating potency, like we hear so many stories in Vrindavan how in the morning the Lord's performing his pastimes in one place and he goes to another place, but there's millions of cows and he's walking from these places in a few minutes. How is that? Because the Dham is expanding and contracting. So the Adara Shakti expands and contracts to accommodate the Dham, to accommodate the Lord's pastimes. So the Adara Shakti is also there. And so Shesha, he's also the support of the Adara Shakti. The Adara Shakti is sitting upon one of his hoods. All the universes are sitting on his hoods, and they're so tiny he doesn't even know they're there. Can you imagine that? Like we were reading yesterday about this pastime of Varaha lifting up the earth. And for him it was like nothing. So, in the same way we can understand how Krishna or Balaram actually is supporting all the universes on his hoods, and it is insignificant for him. He doesn't even notice they're there. And it's kind of interesting that, just a little bit of interesting information. There's two primary forms of Shesha. One is the form of Shesha that expands in all the paraphernalia and things that assist the Lord in his pastimes. There's another form of Shesha which supports the universe. So the form where he expands to assist Krishna in his pastimes, this is Balaram. The form, this is Jiva Goswami makes this statement. The form where he supports the universes on his heads, this is a Jiva. Yeah, interesting, huh? It's a what do you call it, a Shaktivesh Incarnation. So it means that the Lord has blessed him, Anantashesh or Balaram has blessed this Jiva with the power. Because if you read in the teachings of Lord Caitanya, which is essentially Lord Chaitanya's teachings to Sanatana Goswami, it very clearly says there that Anantashesh, Shesha is a Shaktivesh Incarnation. Yeah? And I found the answer to this a few years ago. Banu Swami helped me to understand this, that Shesha is a Shaktivesh Incarnation, whereas the Shesha that assists in the Lord in his service, this is Balaram. So very interesting. So just to give you an idea of what Balaram does. He's called Ananta or unlimited because he assists the personality of Godhead in his unlimited expansions by performing an unlimited variety of services. There's no end to the services that Balaram does for Krishna. And wherever Krishna appears, Balaram appears. So we have Krishna Balaram, Caitanya Nityananda, and we also have Ram, Lakshman. He always appears. Wherever Krishna appears, he's there to serve him. Yeah? Sri Balaram is a servant of Godhead who serves Krishna in all affairs of existence and knowledge. Lord Nityananda Prabhu is the same servant of Godhead, Balaram, performs the same service to Lord Gauranga by constant association. Mahashankarshan, so as I was saying, just to give you a bit of a perspective again, Mahashankarshan is the shelter of all jivas. Sankarshan is the original shelter of the Purusha also, from whom this world is created and whom it is dissolved. He, Sankarshan, is the shelter of everything. He is wonderful in every respect. His opulences are infinite. Even Ananta cannot describe his glory. That Sankarshan, who is transcendental pure goodness, is a partial expansion of Nityananda Balaram. A partial expansion. He's not the full deal. He's just a part of Nityananda Balaram. So just to give you an idea of how, like we can see how great Sankarshan is, what he does in creating the universe, etc. And if you reflect on, okay, this planet is pretty big. I've traveled a lot and I've seen a lot of the planet, and I haven't seen everything, and it's pretty big. But this planet is just a small, tiny speck in this universe. And this universe is just one tiny, and it's actually, our universe is one of the smallest universes, by the way. If you look in the Krishna book, there's a wonderful story about how Lord Brahma, he was visiting Krishna, and he went to the gatekeeper and said, can you please tell Krishna that Lord Brahma is here? And then so the gatekeeper goes off to see Krishna, he comes back and he said, Krishna wants to know which Brahma. And then he was like, what do you mean, which Brahma? Because he was thinking he was the one and only. We all have that kind of thought process, isn't it? We're the one and only. How come you don't know? Don't you know who I am? Yeah. So it's a little bit like that. And then so he's a bit bewildered. He says, tell the Lord the four-headed Brahma. But he couldn't think of how to identify himself, so he said the four-headed Brahma. So then he goes back in and he tells him who it is, and he said, tell him to come in. So he comes in, and just at that moment, Krishna mystically summoned all the Brahmas in creation to come there. And the interesting thing was, they couldn't see each other, but the four-headed Brahma could see all of them. And he was just like dumbfounded to see that there was 100-headed Brahmas, 1,000-headed Brahmas, millions of headed Brahmas. He was just dumbfounded to see. And then, it's obviously a very humbling experience for him to realize he wasn't the only Lord Brahma. So, just to give you an idea of the greatness of the Lord. All right, so I just wanted to, as I mentioned, I wanted to talk a little bit about childhood pastimes. When Nityananda appeared, he appeared in a town called Ekachakra. A very, very nice town. They recently built a temple there in Ekachakra, opened the temple. And I went there just before the installation. But it's a very, very beautiful place. And so he appeared there to Padmavati, I think his mother's name, and Harai Pandit was his father. And they were very devoted parents and also very elevated Vaishnavas. And when he was a child, he was completely absorbed in the pastimes of the Lord, just completely absorbed. Always, with his childhood friends, they're always enacting out these different pastimes. Putana, being killed by Krishna, and the Trinavata demon, the Sakat. They carried out the Sakat Asura, and they made a cart out of reeds and tied it all together, and they smashed it. And so all these pastimes, but not just like performing the pastimes, but incredible detail. Every aspect of it was there. And he was only a young boy. And the elders were like puzzled. How did he know so many of Krishna's pastimes? So at one particular time, there's quite an extraordinary pastime where they were doing Ram Leela. And at one point, in the story of Ram, Ravan has this Shakti weapon. I think it's Ravan has this Shakti weapon that he hurls at maybe it's Ravan or Indrajit? I don't remember. But one of them hurls this Shakti weapon at Lakshman and renders him unconscious. And so, of course, Nityananda Prabhu was playing the role of Lakshman. So he was hit by this Shakti weapon, which was a lotus flower. His friend threw a lotus flower at him. He got hit by the lotus flower and just passed out unconscious. And like his friends were like trying to wake him up. Okay, we've finished the game now. You can wake up. You know? But for him, it wasn't a game. It was real. And so he was not only lost consciousness, he wasn't breathing. He'd stopped breathing, and his friends were becoming really, really worried. And so they ran and got their parents and said, Nityananda, he's not breathing. And their parents said, and the parents also, the mother and father came there, they fainted, just very much like the pastimes of Krishna, when he was dancing on the head of Aghasura. Not Aghasura, sorry, Kaliya. Yeah? And so very much the same thing. Parents fainted, and then one of the elders there, he said, "What were you doing when he fainted?" And so they described, we were, performing, we were doing this drama of the pastimes of Ramachandra, and he was playing Lakshman, and I was playing, whoever cast the Shakti weapon, and I threw the thing, and he passed out, and that was it. And he said, "Okay, what's the next thing?" And then who was playing Hanuman? And so the devotee who was playing Hanuman, he said, "Okay, now what you have to go and find the Sanjivani herb, I think it's called, from the Gandhamadana mountain." And so, they enact out the whole pastime, how he met this sage, and the sage was saying, "Oh, why don't you sit down here and talk with me for a while?" He said, No, I have to go because, Lakshman, he may give up his life. And, so they're going through the whole drama like that. And finally he got the Sanjivani herb, he took it back, and the physician made it into the drug, and they waved it under the nose of Nityananda, and he came back to life. And then the adults are just like, "What's going on here? Yeah? What's going on here?" And they said to Nityananda, "How do you know so much about these pastimes?" He said, "Because these are my pastimes." So he revealed to them that he was actually enacting out his own pastimes. And there's so many amazing pastimes. There's a really interesting book called the Nityananda Charitamrita, which is written by Vrindavan Das Thakur, and it gives a lot of detail about these different pastimes of Lord Nityananda. And even we can see there's a whole wonderful description of when Nityananda and Lord Caitanya first meet. I can remember a little bit of it. I'll share a little bit of it with you. So they first met. Does anyone know where they first met? Nityananda and Caitanya? It's just down the road from our temple in Mayapur. If you go towards Hulagat, there's a... Does anyone know? Has anyone here been to Mayapur very often? Okay. So where our temple is in Mayapur, you head east, south, yeah? And you go to Hulagat. And that's where you catch the boat to go across the Navadvip. Navadvip is probably the only place locally worth going to shop, if you want to buy deity worship paraphernalia and things like that. So on the way down there on the left, there is the house of Nandanacharya. So this is the place where Nityananda and Caitanya first met. And there's a wonderful story because Nityananda was dressed a little bit sort of, raggedly, I guess you could say, and he was a bit of an avadut. He was a bit of actually Prabhupada sometimes had said that Nityananda was the most controversial character. Some of the stories that you hear about Lord Nityananda, you can understand why Prabhupada called him that. He would just do really unusual things, And sometimes he would jump in the Ganga to wrestle alligators, for instance. And one time he took Mahaprabhu to visit some so-called sadhu brahmana type person, and then this brahmana wanted to offer Mahaprabhu something to eat, and so Mahaprabhu was okay, and so he said, I have some wonderful Ganga phal. And Mahaprabhu was thinking, he's going to offer me some fruits. And then Nityananda said, no, Ganga phal, it means fish, because of the fruit of the Ganges. Yeah? So Mahaprabhu ran out of the place and jumped in chanting out the names of Vishnu, 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 and jumped in the Ganga. But anyhow, so when they, if anyone knows this story, please correct me because I'm a bit fuzzy on the detail. But when Nityananda first came, because Mahaprabhu shared with his associates that he, a very dear associate was going to come to Mayapur soon, and that they should keep an eye out for him. When he comes, they should introduce him. So Mahaprabhu was at the house of Nandanacharya, and then what happened was Nityananda came in. He was sitting outside the house, and I can't remember the exact detail, but anyhow, Mahaprabhu sent someone outside to call him, and at first they didn't notice it was Nityananda, or they thought he was someone else, but he said, no, he's out there, he's in the bushes, And so they went out and they found him, and they brought him in. And so it's a wonderful pastime, but there's many sort of stories within the story kind of thing, which I don't remember them all, but I know different devotees have given extensive lectures on this particular pastime of the meeting of Nityananda and Caitanya. And of course, we understand that Nityananda is eternally with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, as I mentioned before, when he comes as Krishna, and Balaram comes. When he comes as Ram, Lakshman comes. And so with all the different incarnations, whenever Krishna descends to this material world, his counterpart Balaram also comes with him, because he's the one who makes all the arrangements for his service. Even we see when the Lord expands his Vasudeva, Balaram expands his Sankarshan. So he's there to serve. So in so many different ways he's serving. Now I just wanted to, following on from the question I got last night, there's a really interesting pastime. This is So in Gaura Lila, there was one personality who was known as Shivananda Sen. And Shivananda Sen he's from the Navadvip area, and he had such a wonderful service attitude. He was also well-to-do. And so every year, the devotees would go from Navadvip to Puri. And Shivananda Sen, he'd make all the arrangements. He would organize accommodation, he would organize their meals, he would cover all the costs of the tolls, because in those days, every kind of little area, like district, would have a toll to go from one district to the next. So he covered all the different tolls and stuff, and sometimes it could be very difficult. And also there were rivers that they had to cross, so he would organize the boats and he would pay for all that. But one time, Shivananda Sen got caught up with the toll keeper, and all the other devotees went ahead. But he was caught up for quite a while, and so it was approaching evening, and it was time for the evening meal, but he wasn't able to arrange this properly. He was hoping his servant was going to do it, but he didn't arrange it properly. So Nityananda Prabhu was hungry, and he didn't get his meal. So then Nityananda Prabhu, he uttered a curse. He said, "This Nityananda Sen, he's so useless, I curse him that all his sons will die." He had 3 sons. And so Shivananda Sen's wife became like distraught. Oh my God, he's cursed all his sons. She was crying and just going on. And then Shivananda Sen, he came and his wife was crying. And then he asked his wife, "What's happened?" And he said, "Oh, don't you know? Nityananda Prabhu has cursed our sons to die, our 3 sons to die." That's kind of disturbing. Haribol, I can't, sorry. And so, she shared this with Nityananda, with Shivananda Sen, and Shivananda said, "Look, why are you worried about this? That Nityananda Prabhu was taking any notice of us. This is our great benediction." And then so he went immediately to see Nityananda Prabhu, and he bowed down to Nityananda. So Nityananda got up and just kicked him straight away. And then Shivananda Sen was thinking, "Oh my God, I'm so fortunate. I received the touch, the blessings of the lotus feet of Nityananda." And then he said to Nityananda, he said, "My Lord, thank you so much. You've actually given meaning to my life. Lord Brahma, in his millions of years of life, he doesn't even get the fortune to see the tip of the toe of your lotus feet. And here you are. You've kicked me with it. Haribol, Haribol." He was so ecstatic, And then Nityananda, he became very pleased, because he was seeing the humility of Shivananda Sen. So this is a way that we can receive the mercy of Nityananda, is to become humble, It's not the only way. There's other ways too, but I just thought this is a particularly outstanding story because he became pleased seeing his humility, seeing that, even though his sons were cursed, he wasn't trying to retaliate. He wasn't trying to counter curse or tell Nityananda, oh, why did you do this? Or no, he's just saying, thank you, my Lord, that you've bestowed your mercy upon us. Now, he said, today my birth, my family, my activities have all become successful. Today I have achieved the fulfillment of religious principles, economic development, satisfaction of the senses, and ultimately devotional service to Lord Krishna. So he was so happy to receive that blessing. Now there's another place where Prabhupada explains that song Gauranga Bolite Habe. It's a song that Prabhupada would sing quite a lot. He liked this song. And Srila Prabhupada explains in this song that Nityananda becomes pleased with us when we give up all material desires. So I'll just read a little bit from the song. The next line is Are Kabe Nitai Chan Karuna Koribe Are Kabe Nitai Chan Karuna Koribe. This is also aspiration, that when Nityananda Prabhu, the constant associate of Lord Chaitanya, will be pleased upon me. Karuna Koribe. Karuna Koribe means he will be pleased upon me. Nityananda Prabhu or Nitai Chand is the original spiritual master. He is Baladev. Bala means strength, and Deva, the personality of Godhead, who gives strength. Therefore, Nitai Chand is the symbol of the spiritual master who gives strength to the disciples. So we can gain strength in our spiritual life from Nityananda Prabhu. This is the process of disciplic succession. We have to acquire the spiritual strength. No amount of material strength can help me in advancement of spiritual life. We must derive the spiritual strength, just like we have to take electricity from the powerhouse by directly connecting with the powerhouse, not the wiring, but the electricity. Similarly, this disciplic succession means the strength is descending from the original person, that's Nityananda Prabhu, through the spiritual master. That is the idea. So Narottam Das Thakur explains that when Nitai Chand will be pleased, and the result of such pleasure of Nitai Chand is that one becomes free from all desires for material enjoyment. So by the mercy of Nitai Chand, one will get free from all desire and material enjoyment. Yeah? So when we take shelter of Lord Nityananda, when we become free from material desires, he'll become pleased upon us. And then the last one I wanted to share with you is this song, Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu, sung by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So in this song there's a line that it says, Ha ha Prabhu Sitapati Advaita Gosai. So he's praying to Sitapati. You know who Sitapati is? Not the devotee in New Zealand. Anyone know who Sitapati is? Advaita Acharya. Yeah, his wife's name was Sita. Yeah. So he's saying Advaita Prabhu's wife's name was Sita. Therefore, he is sometimes addressed as Sitapati. So my dear Advaita Prabhu, the husband of Sita, please, you also be kind upon me. Because if you become kind upon me, then naturally Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda will be kind upon me. So how do we get the satisfaction of Advaita? What did Advaita Acharya do? What's he famous for in our line? Yes, he was calling Gauranga Maha, but why was he calling him? What was his motive? You're right, you're 100% right, but why was he doing it? Yeah, because he saw how the living entities were suffering, and out of compassion he wanted to do something to save these living entities, but he understood this task is too big for me. Only you can do this. Yeah? So there was an interesting class. I was actually having this conversation with a friend from New Zealand this morning, and he was listening to a class from Giriraj Maharaj, and this is what inspired me to talk about this, was this idea of this compassionate nature of spreading Krishna consciousness. Yeah? Because Giriraj Maharaj, he was saying, to get the mercy of Lord Nityananda, we need the mercy of, guess who? Jaghai and Madhai. Yeah? Very controversial characters also. And because Jaghai and Madhai, they received the full mercy of Nityananda. Because Madhavananda or Madhai, he threw a pot and cut the head of Nityananda. And Mahaprabhu became furious when he found this out. He summoned his chakra and he was going to kill both of them. Cut their heads off like he'd done with so many other demons. But Nityananda said, no, this is not your mission. You did not come here to kill the demons with weapons. You came here to destroy the demonic propensity through the chanting of the holy name. So therefore we see that if we take shelter of Jagai Madhai, we pray to Jagai Madhai, because this whole world is full of millions upon millions of Jagai Madhais. Yeah? And if we take shelter of them, if we pray for their mercy, then we also can become an instrument for Nityananda Prabhu to deliver all these Jagai Madhais. So you see, there's different ways that we can achieve the mercy and the pleasure of Nityananda Prabhu. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. Any questions at all? Any comments? Further discussion? It's a very good day because we understand on days like the Appearance Day is the personality whose appearance it is but in a particularly merciful mood. Sometimes described like an elephant. An elephant's very merciful. You ever been to anywhere there's elephants and you see they have their trunk, and all the Indians, they go up because they want the trunk to touch, they want the elephant to touch on the head with the trunk because they understand this is a way of getting blessings. So, on the Appearance Day of great personalities, or on the Appearance Day of Incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, very, very merciful. But we don't go approaching the Lord for, give me a new car, give me a PhD, give me this, give me that. No. What do we want? What do we ask the Lord for? Huh? Bhakti. Yeah, that's all we want is bhakti. And actually, there's an interesting... in this song we sung today, there's an interesting statement there. Let me see if I can find it quickly for you. Wrong page. 82. Just to give you Nitaye Karuna Habe Braje Radha Krishna Bhabe. So only by the mercy of Nityananda will you actually see the pastimes of Radha Krishna. Only by his mercy will we actually be able to understand Radha Krishna and experience their pastimes. So, like I mentioned, today is a wonderful day to pray to the Lord for his mercy, but know what you're praying for. Don't go asking for something that's useless. Don't go asking for something that's temporary. Yeah? Because all these material things, they'll come and go in a moment. It's just like, they call it phantasmagoria. It lasts but a few seconds. That's this material world, And it's because I was having a conversation with someone the other day about this, and they were talking about, this is so difficult, so hard. He said, yeah, but it's all temporary. That's one of the advantages of getting older, because your life is going past so much faster. And when you're younger, it seems like it takes forever. But when you get older, it's like, it seems like I was here yesterday, but it was actually quite a while ago. And so things are going past a lot faster, and you start to realize the temporary nature of everything. Yeah? So don't waste your time on temporary things. Waste your time, focus on that which is eternal. Focus on that which has meaning and which will ultimately bring about your satisfaction and happiness in this world. So if you're going to pray to Lord Nityananda, today's a great day to do it, but ask for the right thing. And he'll give it. He'll give it. Jai Tribi. Haribo. Yakshimash. Any questions at all? Yes, bro. Loud voice. Yeah. Yeah, of course. But it's just like, yesterday we were talking about Varaha Dev. Part of the reason he came was because Manu wanted the earth lifted out of the muck, but also we see that the Devatas went to the shore of the ocean of milk and they were praying there for the Lord to appear. So it's not just one thing. There's many things, and there's so many things going on there in the pastimes. So yes, one of the reasons that Mahaprabhu appeared was because of the intense prayers of Advaita Acharya, but also it just so happened it was time for the Yuga avatar. But it not so happened, it was Krishna's arrangement that this all happened, because he sent Advaita Acharya down there. He sent his parents down there. Because I remember when I visited France a number of years ago, we went and visited a few of the chateaux there. They've got pretty amazing chateaux, but they're pretty grungy places, really Tomasic sort of places. So what would happen there is the kings, the Loire Valley is what they call the Valley of Kings. So all the great kings built their chateaus in this valley. And what they would do is they'd live in one chateau. While they were living there, they'd have another chateau built somewhere else. And then they'd just move the whole court from one chateau to the next. And then another one would be being built in the meantime. And then when that one was built, they'd move the whole court and just leave these chateaus behind. I don't know what they did with them, but they left them behind. So they moved their whole entourage. When Krishna comes, he brings his whole planet. So it just gives you an idea of the scale of things. They bring a few hundred courtesans and stuff like that. Krishna brings millions and millions of people with him. Bit of scale there. So and obviously to do that, it's just like they're moving their court from one place to the other. So a lot of logistics involved. But for Krishna, it's just a thought process, and the whole thing manifests. So it's and he actually has his Shaktis, his Leela Shakti, and all these types of personalities taking care of all these different things. So, yeah, it's on a completely different scale. Yeah? Okay. Thank you so much. Nityananda Prabhu ki, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda ki, Jai Nitai Go Premanandi.
Nityananda Ram, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Nityananda Ram, Nityananda Ram, Jaya Nityananda Ram, Jaya Nityananda Ram, Nityananda Ram, Nityananda Ram, Nityananda Ram. Nadiya Godru mein Nityananda Mahajan, Nityananda Mahajan, Nadiya Godru mein Nityananda Mahajan,